Hello guys, what's up? So this is me, Kurtzus, and for today's video lecture, we will be discussing all about economic globalization. So in our previous discussion, I have introduced to you what is economics. So we have defined economics, we look into the four sectors of the economy, we also look into the policies wherein how the government intervenes in the market. Now for today, we have to define economic globalization, the historical developments, and the ideologies involved. So first, we have to define what is economic globalization. So economic globalization refers to the increased interdependence of world economies. So looking into globalization, wherein there's an increased connection, interdependence towards nation states. So one aspect that we look into your nation states will now be their economies and how the economies will now connect with one another. Now, there's a huge difference when we talk about global economy and economic globalization. Now, the main topic is simply global economy. So, global economy would now narrate during your time of memorial, yung mga ancestors natin, and what is happening today. While economic globalization is a process from the term globalization, which now currently we are now experiencing a high increase of interdependence of world economy. So global economy would now basically narrate yung trade nung sinaunang panahon between our ancestors in the Philippines and with China. Yung mga panahon nila Apu-Lapu, panahon nila Datu, Puti, etc. Diba? Yun yung ng global economy, and it also narrates yung what is happening right now. But when we look into economic globalization, nag-increase ngayon yung trade, no? When we talk about economies, nag-increase ngayon yung movement ng ating services, flow, capital, etc. So global economy, general siya. Economic globalization, it's quite specific. Now, to further understand economic globalization, there are two types, no? So these two types are actually policies on how the government would now enact or intervene in the global economy. So policies, no? So if you remember our discussion on introduction, so there are three main policies wherein the government could now intervene in the market, wherein we have monetary, trade, then fiscal. So all of these policies are reflected towards these two types. And more likely, malaking feature dito or image would now be in terms of trade. And again, but as well, tandaan natin, no, it also affects your monetary and your fiscal policy. Now, there are two types of economic globalization, wherein we have protectionism, then trade liberalization or liberalization. Now, the first type would be in terms of protectionism. Now, anong ibig sabihin ng protectionism? Now, from the word protect, simply it attempts the government, our local or national government, attempts to protect their local and national economy. Now, how to protect our local economy? Now, the government will now intervene and regulate in terms of our trade policy. So they need to impose a thing called tariff. Now, when we talk about tariff, tariff is simply tax imposed on foreign or imported goods. So yan yung ating definition all about tariff. Now, anong kinalaman ng tariff on protecting our local or national economies? Now, to give an example, let's find a product. Cabbage. So we have cabbage. So cabbage, Benguet product yan, sabi na natin cabbage nang galing sa atok. Okay, so that is one product and that is one economy. So economy natin, agriculture. So it is being a product of our Benguet farmers. Then tendency is that may bigla na namang papasok na isa pang product na cabbage. And this cabbage will now be coming from a foreign country, Vietnam for instance. Okay, so may dalawang product na tayo. So I hope I can provide an infographic. So may dalawang product na tayo, cabbage from Vietnam and cabbage from the Philippines. Okay. Ngayon, pagpapasok yung dalawang product na yan sa Philippine market, sa Philippine economy, sabihin na natin, papatungan natin yan ng price. So yung gross price for both, I'll just made up prices lang to, no? 10 pesos. So cabbage, 10 pesos, 10 pesos. Now, syempre, papasok yan sa market, tataksan yan ng government. Kasi bebenta na yan, may economic activity, may income generation na yan. So, dadagdagan na natin ng income tax or value-added tax, sabihin na natin 5 pesos para madali. Although there's an actual percentage dapat yan, ha? So, 5 pesos, no? So, from your gross price, which is 10, dadagdagan yan ng 5. Now, technically, yung Vietnam cabbage is a foreign good. So, papatungan natin siya ng tariff. Now, let us say, papatungan natin siya ng 5. So, yung net price ng dalawa would now be your Philippine cabbage, your atok cabbage would now basically be 15 pesos, while your Vietnam cabbage would now be 20 pesos. Now, nandiyan na sa market. I-offer now for selling. Now, you as a consumer, anong bibilin mo? Siyempre, bibili mo yung cheaper. Same product, same quality, sorry. Same product, same quality. Now, yung notion kasi ng consumers natin, behavior ng consumers natin, bibilin natin would now be yung cheaper kung pareho lang naman yung quality. Now, yung konteksto dito, pag inalis natin yung tariff, ang mangyayari dyan, alisin natin yung tariff sa cabbage ng Vietnam. So, magiging pareho na yung presyo. Now, you as a consumer, ano ngayon yung bibilin mo? Now, in your individual mindset, di ba, ang sagot natin dyan would now be Vietnam. Kasi nandun ngayon yung notion ng ating consumers or mindset ng ating consumers na imported goods have higher quality. Mataas yung quality niya. So, yun yung bibilhin nila, no? At anong problema niya? Yung problema ngayon dito, it now becomes a threat towards our national or local economies, yung mga sectors natin. Kasi nagkakaroon ngayon ng competition. So, dahil nagkakaroon ngayon ng competition, nakahati, na-divide ngayon yung sales natin. At kung na-divide yung sales natin, tendency, hindi mabilis yung paglago ng ating national economies. And the drastic effects, if people would now shift their buying or magsishift yung kanilang pagbili, yung kanilang mindset towards foreign goods, unti-unti nang nababawasan ngayon yung sales ng ating mga local farmers. And that is already a problem. Kung unti na yung nakikita ng ating mga farmers, tendency nagkaroon yun ng drastic effects. So kumikita nila and it could kill a sector. So that is why the government needs to protect their national interest, their local interest. But basically guys, hindi lang yung nakalimit ang tariff or hindi lang nakalimit yung protectionism when it comes to tariff. The policy is also reflected when it comes, for instance, sa labor market natin, no. And this is one rhetoric of Trump. Trump by nature is protectionist, yung kanyang mga economic policies. Kasi for instance, no, one rhetoric kasi ni Trump, 'di ba, he is against the immigrants, the Mexican immigrants. Kasi notion dyan is that the Mexican immigrants are stealing Americans' jobs, no. So ang nangyayari dyan is that nagkaroon ngayon ng regulation when it comes to immigrants, yung mga Mexican immigrants natin. So technically protectionist din yung lumalabas dyan. So now speaking about Trump, all of your nation states actually are protectionist nature talaga yan. Kasi realist yan eh. Unahin natin yung national interest natin before yung interest ng other countries, yung mga or other foreign companies. However, as time changes, ngayon yung nagiging trend ngayon would now be liberalization. Now it refers to the reduction to the total removal of government barriers. The best example would now be in terms of tariff. So government barriers, kung naalala niyo yung discussion natin sa internationalization at transnationalization, di ba? Barriers, borders, boundaries. So this would now include tariff, restrictions kunyari sa ating visas. So tendency, all of those are protectionist, yung barriers. Now liberalization, unting-unti na siya nang wawala, yung mga taxes natin, to ensure flow of goods and services. So yun yung nagiging objective ngayon ng liberalization. Now, bakit yung mga countries ngayon would now shift, north basically countries, bakit ngayon yung trend ng world market natin, world economy, is from a shift of protectionist to liberalization. Now, we have to look into historical economic developments, or rather the ideologies that will now govern your global economy. So may tatlo yan, no? So we have classical economics, Keynesian economics, then neo-liberalism economics. So narration yung discussion ko dito, no? Okay. Now, around your 1800s or even 1600s, basta yung mga panahon natin, yung mga tuxedo pa yung mga ninuno natin, no? Ang dominant economic approach kasi noon would now be classical economic model. So, yung proponents would be Adam Smith, Ricardo David, and John Stuart Mill. So, these are utilitarians, no? A school of thought in economy and political science. Now, ang argument daw nila kasi dito when it comes to classical economics, lesser government intervention will now lead to economic productivity. And because there's an encouragement of economic productivity or an increase with economic productivity, it would now stimulate profit growth and capital accumulation. And also, it would now bring us to economic development. So, yun daw yung argument ng classical economics. Now, to give you a logic, no, bakit nga ba kailangan ng lesser government intervention? We are not stating na kailangan totally nialisin natin yung government. Ang notion kasi dyan, or to give you an example, would now be, kunyari, there are two individuals, a master and a slave, or a worker, rather worker yan, no? Now, yung master na yan, laging nandyan, nakabantay sa mga workers or nakahigpit lagi sa leeg ng mga workers, no? Kung laging nakahigpit doon sa leeg ng mga workers, yung mga workers, they could not work productive. So, more likely, yung nalilimit na yung kanilang labor. Nakahigpit siya dyan, sir, pagod na ako, no, magtrabaho ka, bababa talaga yung productivity niya. But aside from bababa yung labor productivity niya, ang isa ring notion dyan is that linilimit yung creativity ng isang worker. Now, ano yung konteksto dito? When we talk about creativity, yung ideas, or sa Tagalog, yung pagiging madiskarte. Now, I speak like a capitalist, but just to explain classical economics model, no? Ang reason kasi dyan is that anong mas magiging productive? Yung hardworking or yung pagiging industrious or yung pagiging madiskarte? Now, in work ethics kasi, in workplace kasi, ang lumalabas dyan, ang mas nagiging productive, yung mas magiging, yung mga madiskarte. Yung madiskarte. Kasi they will now make something or they will do something in order to make the job faster or to make yung objectives na makuha agad. So, nagiging effective at efficient sila. So, ang problema dito, when it comes to the master analogy is, linilimit mo na yung productivity at linilimit mo pa yung creativity. So, tendency unti lang yung makukuha. Now, pag inalis mo yung master na yan, wala na yung higpit sa kanilang leeg. So, nagiging mas productive sila. And in the same time, mas nagiging creative sila. Mas nagiging madiskarte sila. So, ganun yung reason. Now, imagine that master being the government and now your slaves or your workers to be your economic sectors, yung markets natin, yung mga firms. So, mas nagiging productive sila. At doon nagkakaroon ngayon, doon mas madaming outcome, tendency, mas madaming return. Mas madaming return ang lumalabas dyan. So, ganun yung logic behind your classical economics. Now, aside from yung productive and creative variable, pwede din natin ipasok dito lesser taxes, no? So, lesser government intervention, tendency, we could not remove taxes, lesser collection of tax. Now, you as an investor, kunyari, a foreign investor, syempre, ang decision making ng mga investors natin is mababa kayang tax nito kasi they want to take home a lot. No? Mas madaming, ang gusto nila, mas madami silang nauuwi, no? Mas madami silang sales kaysa dun sa mga costs. So, yun din yung nakikita natin sa classical economics. So, looking into the classical economics, lesser government intervention simply promotes the private sector. Hayaan na natin yung private sector na gawin yung kanyang trabaho. At dyan na mag-initiate yung economic activity. Mukhang maganda. But the problem with your classical economics, kung inalis mo yung government, walang authority ngayon dyan na magdidikta ng mga rules of the game. Dyan na nagkakaproblema. And remember guys, human nature is selfish, they are prone to abuses, they abuse yung mga rights na na-entitle sa kanila. So ito yung nagiging problema sa classical economics. So the problems would now include unhealthy competition, unregulated prices, unfair and unjust labor practices. Kasi wala nang governing authority, wala nang gobyerno dyan. At inflation. And looking into those problems, economics, domino effect yan. Kung may problema yung isa, sunod-sunod na yung problema na yan. Just like the logic on structural functionalism in your body. Kung may sakit sa isang part ng katawan, apektado na yung buong katawan. So yun yung problema natin when it comes to classical economics model. At na-encounter nila tong problema. And it has been reflected by the Great Depression. So the Great Depression actually challenges yung notion natin sa classical economics. What happened in your Great Depression is ang daming nangyari dyan. But there are a lot of causes. There are a lot of arguments actually about the cause of your Great Depression. Yung nangyari kasi doon sa Great Depression, I just cite yung explanation ni Keynes, no? Keynes stated that your Great Depression is caused by the decrease of your aggregate demand. When we talk about aggregate demand, bumaba yung spending ng mga tao. Bakit bumaba yung spending ng mga tao? Due to high economic productivity. So yung mga tao na yun, sobrang mayaman. When it comes to leisure, they always do leisures, for instance. Mataas yung buhay ngayon. Mataas yung status ng buhay ngayon. No? So nangyari dyan is the people believe that mindset that if they save their money, tendency is that they have economic security. So, secured na sila economically. Pero yung problema ngayon papasok dyan is that dahil nagsisave ngayon tao, wala na nagsispend. Now, yung mga sectors, wala na silang sales, wala na silang kita. So, walang bumibili nito. Bakit walang bumibili? Because people keep on saving. Now, dahil wala nang sales, yung mga businesses nun, yung mga sectors nun, doon na nagkaroon ng drastic effects. So, it's nag-escalate, nag-domino effect, no? So your Great Depression, ito yung mga effects, but madami pang effects, no? The percentage, the statistics arguable daw yan. However, matataas pa rin yan, no? So GDP worldwide fell by an estimate of 15%. Tax revenues, profits, income, bumaba more than 50%. Unemployment in the US alone, 23%, although debatable yan, and some countries was high as 33%. So yun yung nangyari sa Great Depression. So, a solution or a prescription towards Great Depression and an antithesis towards your classical economics is we have the ideas of Keynes, which is now called Keynesianism. Now, John Maynard Keynes proposed this idea. So, he now prescribed, ito yung solution natin when it comes to recession. So, Keynes now stated, or rather, he now provided two solutions to combat economic problems such as depression. Now, the first, which is now the opposite when it comes to classical economics, is that the economy needs government intervention. Or more government intervention will now solve your economic problems. Through how? The best example will now be in terms of tax and expenditures. So tax, mangongolekta tayo ng revenue at kailangan ng spending. Now, he proposes quite a very radicalistic solution. Although hindi na siya radical pag alam mo na eh. We have this thing called deficit spending. Mas mataas yung expenditures compared with your revenue. So gastos ka lang ng gastos, konti lang nakikita mo pero mas malaki yung gastos mo, no. Pero here's the reason behind it, no. Okay, let's look into your Great Depression. Walang trabaho yung mga tao, your sectors babang-baba, crash down yung stock market natin. Now, how to revive all of this one, no? Now, sabi ni Keynes, ganito lang yan. Kailangan natin gumastos. Okay. With your remaining revenue, your money, definitely kulang yan. You have to start something. You have to stimulate an economic activity. So the best solution daw dito, when we talk about deficit spending, is that we should now spend our money. So saan natin siya isi-spend? A government project. And the best type of government project would now be infrastructure. So we'll now start infrastructure. Ito actually yung ginawa ni Hitler. Yung sa Autobahn project niya. Hitler created a massive highway system sa Germany. But not just Hitler, even Franklin Roosevelt, no. Franklin Roosevelt has this project called the New Deal. So these two projects, Hitler's Autobahn and Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal, are actually Keynesian economic model. Although may some argument about sa New Deal, no. Hindi sinundan ni Roosevelt yung actual na proposal or prescription ni Keynes. But regardless to say, Keynesian model yan, no. Now, ganito. Okay, we start with infrastructure projects. Now, walang pondo yung government kasi depression yan. Dito na papasok yung second solution later, which is now mangutang tayo. Now, tendency na mangutang tayo or the remaining budget of the government will now initiate a project. So, through highways, through infrastructure. So, gagawa ko kunyari ng highways. Now, may dalawang effect yan. Now, yun, may highway, tendency is that yung mga unemployed because of depression, magkakaroon yun ng trabaho. Wala silang trabaho, kahit sahudan mo sila na mababa, pero ino-offeran mo ng trabaho, papatulan nila yan. Ngayon, yung mga unemployed, may trabaho na ngayon. At may trabaho na ngayon sila, may pera sila. Saan nila gagamitin yung pera? Gagastusin nila ngayon for their needs and necessities. So, tendency, pag ginastos nila yung pera, magkakaroon ngayon ng customers, yung ating mga sectors, yung ating mga firms. Na dahil sa Great Depression, walang customer nun, di ba? So, nagkaroon sila ng customer. At ngayon, we now stimulate an economic activity. Dahil may pera ngayon yung mga firms na yan, tendency, they will now buy more things para may products ulit na mabebenta. Nagkaroon ngayon ng economic activity. Now, yung economic activity na yan, tataksan na ulit yan ng government. That is one effect. Then another effect would now be this one. In terms of highways. So yung highway na yan, dapat strategic yan. Nakakonect siya sa mga rural communities or vital places kung saan nandun yung mga resources. And because of that, we're making the market closer. So yung mga products na yan, mas lumalapit sa market, sa mga sentro ng mga markets. So yung mga nandun sa mga rural communities, nagkaroon ngayon ng source of income. So tendency yung mga products nila na nabebenta or in the same time, nagagamit yung mga raw materials doon sa kanilang places. And regardless to say, both beneficial siya for the rural communities at yung mga centros natin, yung mga center. So nag-initiate ulit ng economic activity. At kukolektahin ulit yan ng government through taxes. So, kumita na yung tao, kumita din yung government. Now, dun sa dalawang effects na sinabi ko, tendency is that kumita yung government dyan. So kumita yung government, a portion of their kita would now be paid in again, babayaran ulit nila yung utang na yan, at kung may kita ulit sila ulit dyan, they will now again invest towards another infrastructure project. So ang nangyayari dyan is like a Fibonacci effect. So lumalaki yung pera natin, nagsistimulate na economic activity. And in the same time, in business, ang tawag natin dyan is return of investment. So ganun yung nangyayari, no? So ang ganda na explanation ni Keynes dyan. It's an increase of aggregate demand. We now initiate a demand. Dahil may supply, yun na, naganda siya, no? Now, the question a while ago is, kung wala nga pondo yung government, di ba? Because of depression. Here is now his second solution. So, ito yung first, di ba? The second solution is the creation of an international governing authority. So, ayan na, no? So, govern the global economy dahil chaotic yung global economy natin. And as well, the creation of this thing called your Bretton Woods system. Na sila na ngayon yung mag-provide ng mga funds na kulang dito. So, itong Bretton Woods system is created by Keynes. Or rather, was a product of Keynes' idea, of Keynes' solution. Which would now, we have the three main Bretton Woods system. Your International Monetary Fund, and your World Bank, no? So these two institutions are for the loans na kailangan in terms of recession. So IMF is, when it comes, ang difference naman nitong dalawa is IMF short term, then your World Bank long term yan, no? Then another thing would now be yung General Agreement on Trade and Tariff, and dapat may N yan, and later was converted or shifted towards the World Trade Organization. Sila naman mag-govern ng global trade. Now look, no, ito yung proposal ni Keynes in order to combat economic problems. So yan yung idea, no. So nakikita na natin yung involvement of both national government pagdating dito and your global economy. So connection siya. But as time goes by, medyo nag-evolve yung idea ni Keynes. So sort of nangyari dito is you have your classical economics. Although this is sort of lang naman, it's not the actual truth, no. Ang nangyari kasi dito is that yung idea ng classical economics at yung idea ni Keynes medyo nag-synthesize, nag-merge, at ngayon we have neo-liberalism. So basically it's not actually na nag-merge, no, but basically parang ganun yung nangyari, no. So it evolves Keynes' idea, but these international organizations, the Bretton Woods system, will now promote less government intervention. Parang bumaligtad. So nangyari ngayon dyan is we have the Bretton Woods system na sila ngayon yung naging powerful. So again, going back with liberalization, so main objective is the removal of barriers, tariffs for instance. Now this ideology has three principles: free trade, regularization, and privatization. Ang notion kasi dito is, or rather to define the following na lang, free trade is the reduction to the total removal of tariffs. Second is we have the regularization. Government loses power to regulate prices. Then we have privatization, shifting ownership of public sector to the private sector. So yun na yung nangyari actually when it comes to neoliberalization. So when we look kasi dito guys, ang main objective, it's quite idealistic, positive naman actually. They wanted to unify our markets. So universal expansion of markets. Basically what is the Bretton Woods system attempting to propose is that we let your local economies offer their products towards your world market. So para magkaroon ngayon ng other opportunities yung ating mga sectors to present their products. So extension of their market. So kung hindi lang nakalimit dito sa Pilipinas, we will give you a chance in order to sell your products pagdating sa America, pagdating sa Africa. So a wider consumer, prospect consumers, no, or clients. So tendency mas madami daw yung mauuwi ng ating mga local sectors or local economies. But again, medyo idealistic siya. Now when we look into reality, medyo negative siya. Kasi when we look into the reality of markets, exploitative ang market. So panay competition dyan. So for instance, competition lagi yan, no? So nangyari dyan is that it's like the survival of the fittest. So exploitative siya. So yun yung yun yung notion natin when we talk about the developments of your global economy. So thank you.